I know you all are going to love the next speaker. Many of you probably already know him by reputation, and that speaker is Doug Mellinger. He has been, throughout his career in the past 30 years, he's been an extremely successful entrepreneur. He's taken a company public. He's the owner of Foundation Source. Through a firm that he's involved with, he's purchased a number of universities that were struggling and turned them around to be very successful. He's on the founding board of the Entrepreneurs Organization. He was the founder of the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs, which has later turned into the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. And more recently, one of the organizations he purchased is Cogswell College out in Silicon Valley. And he has some really powerful ideas about how we can take our field to the next level. And I also want to acknowledge Trish Costello from Cogswell College, who's here today. So let's give Doug a warm round of welcome.
Thanks, Michael. It was great coming here because I get to see some old friends that I haven't seen in a long time, and it's just amazing over the last 30 years how this ecosystem around the entrepreneurial arena has developed. But I love, most importantly, what these guys are doing with extreme entrepreneurship. And Michael, he pulled the oldest trick in the book to get us here. It's like, hey Doug, you got to come because so-and-so is going to be here now. And he hasn't spoken to them yet. But once he got me hooked, then he got them hooked, and before you know it, we're all in this room. So, entrepreneurial, I just love the way this whole thing came together. So, what I want to talk today is, I've kind of been reflecting over the last several weeks about how this whole field has developed. When I was 1983, when I was at Syracuse University, I decided I wanted to have a degree in entrepreneurship, and the school told me there was no such thing. And I said, why? And they said, because it's not a degree. It's not a field of study. And I couldn't accept that, and so I just kept driving people crazy until I finally found somebody who would let me design my own major. And I convinced them, and so in '83 I got my degree in entrepreneurship. And it was one of the first at Syracuse, but one of the first in the world to have it. But around that same time, I started realizing that there was no network. This whole field was just so embryonic. And if you looked at the media at that time, whenever an article was written about myself or any other young entrepreneur at that time, it always had in the first sentence, whiz kid. And that just pissed me off. Because I was an entrepreneur, I was having an impact on the economy, I was building businesses, and why do I have to be this one-eyed monster whiz kid? I should have the same credibility as anyone else. And so that's where a lot of this stuff really started, was this kind of passion for creating the entrepreneurial network, creating the education, and creating the credibility. But as I look over the last, past 30 years, I don't really feel that we've accomplished what we could accomplish. And so, I'm really rededicating myself and working with Trish and lots of other people to try to do something much bigger. And so, I think, and when I kind of ask myself the question, why am I here? And I hope the same question to all of you as to why are you here? To me, it's about helping young people, old people, whatever age, help them to shape and execute their dream. And if we accomplish that objective, then the effect of that is a stronger economy. And if we have a stronger economy, then we can actually pay for all the various other things that people want solved, the various social and environmental and other types of issues. So it all really comes down to, if we can't accelerate, if we can't ignite that entrepreneurial revolution in a big way, we're really in trouble. And so, why does it matter that we're here? Because without entrepreneurs, our economy is just doomed. Entrepreneurs are the only ones who create jobs. We're in a jobless recovery right now. And it's because the big companies are making a lot more money because they're doing it with less. The only way we get out of this is if we can create a lot of new entrepreneurs, and those entrepreneurs create a lot of new jobs. Therefore, it's about us in this room, and many others that are not here today, to really lead that effort. I think about, and I've been really fascinated by this whole Egyptian the Tunisian and the rest of these revolutions that are going on around, because to me it reminds me a lot about what it was like 30 years ago when we started doing this entrepreneurial revolution. You know, it was really a group of young people, you know, the students, who started to try to band together and convince the schools to start taking this seriously. Why there was, you know, people like Jerry and others that were out there, you know, really early on doing some classes, and you know, Wichita State University was one of the earliest with a Center for Entrepreneurship in '78, and Babson did its first class in '67. But it really wasn't that big. There was only 16 schools in total that had any courses, let alone degrees, at that period of time. By the end of the '80s, because a lot of work from many young people that were just driving people crazy to do this, we saw 600 schools, and now there's 2,000 schools that offer some sort of class or degree. But I don't think we've come anywhere near what we need to do, and we need that same revolution. You know, specifically young people, and it's just so great to see so many of them here in the room who are going to ignite that revolution again. Because what we need scale. We need collaboration, and we need less overlap. The entrepreneurial ecosystem that exists in this room and people that are not here today are not working together as closely as they should. There's way too much overlap of activities, and we're not building stuff to scale. We could have schools that are these monster schools that might have 50 or 200 students in an entrepreneurial program, whereas we need 10,000. We need to change the whole mindset of what this is about and be able to then make it happen. When I look at schools' websites, you know, the first thing I look for when I talk to people about what's your goal of your institution, and I'll pick on Stanford University because they're so powerful and they're looked up to in many respects. But if you go to the Stanford website for their entrepreneurship program, what it tells you is that their focus is on case studies, research, curriculum, and oh, by the way, one little word, oh, and we also worry about students. But you go through their site, it's all about research. What is the entrepreneur? What's the entrepreneurial economy? How does this impact the world? But they forget what their customer is, which is the student, and preparing them to launch their dream. And if people turn and put their focus back to what that is all about, then what you do and how you do it will be very different. So, you know, to me, your focus and the only mission that matters for an entrepreneurship program is to graduate entrepreneurs and accelerate businesses. Period, end of story. Everything else is total garbage. You want to do the research and the curriculum and all this stuff, great. But that's not what your mission is. Your mission is to graduate entrepreneurs. And once you do that and put that as your focus, I promise you, you will change a lot about what you do. So what's working? As I said, 83, almost nobody's doing it. Today, a lot. 83, no ecosystem. Today, look at all the people that are in this room. You know, whether it is the incubators or the venture community or the universities that are doing various activities, organizations, kind of the member organizations like EO. By the way, EO used to be called YEO because we were young and we got old. And the funny story about EO is when we first started, we had the ACE 100, which was the top 100 young entrepreneurs under the age of 30. And we all started getting to 30, and so YEO then had to push its age to 35, and then it got pushed to 40. And then they were like, oh, we got to create something else because all of us were starting to get towards 40. And then somebody decided to drop the Y. So hopefully it's still very young. Culture, it's gone from whiz kids to now we're real. And I really believe that the work that we did back in the early to mid-'80s led to the entrepreneurial revolution and explosion that happened in the '90s. Because culture changed. The media went from looking at us as these strange creatures to something that was part of the entrepreneurial fabric. And when that happened, parents, now I talked with my dad early on, and fortunately he was an entrepreneur, but he told me that in the '60s when he started his company, his mother almost disowned him because how dare he take that risk with a new wife and a child on the way. How dare he? How could you do that? That was the culture. That is not the culture today. And so we need to make sure that we keep that culture alive. The government has gone through a lot of changes, and Doug You know, we'll talk about some of that later, but we got to continue to push that because it hasn't gone far enough in terms of what we need.